Okay, I see. In the meantime, we are a cozy bubble of people, a virtual bubble. So maybe we can already start just with a bit of introduction of what we were thinking of hosting the session. It's not a usual meetup; it's kind of a celebration. And then if other people join us later, then they can just hop into the rest of the conversation. But basically, we're very happy that all of you made it here. And we thought that when everyone is closing of the year, we also thought it was a good way or a good moment for us to reflect on the past year because we started up this community in the Czech Republic um, with me and Hanka at the steering wheel as a co-chairs just 1 year ago. And this has been our
It was
first
less than
full
a
year
year
as a
ago.
community. And
Yes.
so we prepared a little bit of materials to look back on where we came from, where we are right now, but also to look at, with the people that are here with us today to see how we could form the community together and develop it in an even more conscious way, together with the inputs from everyone, to also look beyond to the next year and the future of this community. And Hanka, I believe you prepared a few nice numbers for us. Maybe you can pull them up and just highlight a little bit the overview of where we are as a community. And I think Hanka is sharing her screen right now, and we just have to click on her picture to make it big.
Yes. Can you see it?
I can see it.
Okay, you can see it. Okay, great. So actually, yes, thank you very much, Thomas, for the introduction. We really think that it's time to celebrate, not because that we survived this year, which was very much like challenging, transformational, changing our lives, changing our norm, how we work, how we live. But it was a very successful year for our community, I would say as well. That despite the COVID and lockdown regulations and everything, we managed to grow more than 4 times, which is amazing. And I really think that, at least I hope that you have anything to, any glass of wine or a glass of beer to have with us, because this really deserves to celebrate. We started in February with the first meetup with about 40 members, and we grew to 167. So we hold 5 meetups, which only one of them is offline. Can you hear me properly, or do you have the
I hear a
encoders?
bit of feedback from somewhere. Maybe if everyone can mute themselves, then
Please
we
do.
have
Yes.
better audio.
Please do. So we had only one offline meetup, which was in February, and then we just went on online meetups. So as we described, we used different platforms and were challenged by managing that. We also used once the Deloitte studio, where we really perceived ourselves like the TV stars. So that was really challenging. But we are really glad that we could meet together even this way, because it gives us a new perspective. We don't have to meet only locally, but the COVID situation and the rise of the technologies really gives us the opportunity to go globally and to meet wherever with different places. I'm really fascinated that we have participants today from Islamabad, I believe from Russia, from all the places around the world. And also, I was very much fascinated that we attracted even 6 international guests to our meetups. We were focusing on raising the awareness about VR. So we invited Domna Banaku from Barcelona, Parul Varva from San Francisco. We had the community leaders who started the community, Paula Teles and Iraq Shah. We had Ed Gregg from Deloitte UK, and today we are really privileged to have Isaac from Switzerland. We had also 9 outstanding Czech speakers. We had a presentation and a speech from Martin Holečko, from Honza Lukačevič, from Petr Šrámek from Longevity Forum, Ledena Edwards also. It was very inspirational. We had other speakers like Andrej Braguca, Honza Hrdlička, Lily Bereskinová. Today we are really privileged to have Sarah Polak and Jiří Krištof Jarmar, and we are really looking forward to our discussion together. And through all the meetups, we had 346 registrants, which is really impressive, I would say. We didn't hope we would have that. So the topics we covered, we were, as we said, we were really focusing on VR and on the transformation on what is coming with the new immersive technologies. So we went through in April. We had COVID-19, the killer of the old mindset, where we discussed what is changing, where's the new reality for us. We had VR for empathy, imagination, and transformation with Domna Banaku and Parul Varva. In September, we wanted to attract also investors to our community. So we were discussing the startups opportunities and the investors' points of view. And today we were really hoping to have another very inspirational discussion about the tech and innovations for humans. Where we have very inspirational young scientists, and we would like to discuss the development from archaeology to quarks. So that's up to today. So okay, but before we go into the panel discussion, we would like also to still go a bit back and to have a discussion and to ask you a few questions through Mentimeter and to have discussion about it. So I give the word to Thomas.
Thank you, Hannah. Maybe before we go into the Mentimeter discussion and get a bit of our insights, I just want to raise my glass to the camera. Cheers with all of you on my first year. So cheers. Awesome. So Clara, if you could pull up the Mentimeter, we prepared a few questions for you to just get a bit of a pulse of what how we stand as a community right now at this point. So we call it looking back. We'll have another one looking beyond after the panel discussion where we give a bit of inspiration. But these questions are to see where do we stand today and how do we feel with our progress so far. So Clara, if you could pull up the QR code for the Mentimeter, then you can just take your phone and join the discussion, and then you can insert all your answers. So I'll give you just a few seconds to get settled. Clara, in the meantime, I think you can go to the first question. In case you weren't able to scan the code, there is also instructions on the top of the screen where you can go to menti.com and put in the code. So the first question is very straightforward. Which category do you belong to the most? Just to get an idea how we are represented. And I think we're 6 people that are taking part. So I think everyone provided their answers already. So it's cool to see that we have, if we just go back to the first one for a second, that we have 4 startups. Because I think that was the community which we started with, really connecting with startups in immersive technologies and trans tech startups. But then over the course of the year, we thought like, okay, how do we really make this relevant and impactful for everyone? And how do we achieve the mission and the vision of trans tech to impact 2 billion people by 2050 with our technologies? And then we thought, okay, we want to reach more enterprises, more educational institutions, but also people from government and investors to build a really healthy ecosystem to accelerate the adoption of these technologies and to develop it in a more conscious way. So it's good to see we have still the bulk of startups, but we managed to reach people from educational institutions, some enterprise. And right now we're with a very small selection of the whole ecosystem. But even with the selection, we're already a good representation. So I'm happy to see that. So Clara, over to the next one, um, which is, we're just interested how you found out about the community. This looks like so far it's been, I'll just wait a second for the results to come in. So I think so far that was also my gut feel that it's either recommended by a friend, a business partner, or it was a personal invitation of someone from the community. Someone actually found us through Google. Awesome,
I mean,
Victor. What made you Google for us? How did you come up with Googling for us?
Yeah, so I was curious about the events in Bay Area, and specifically around like between psychology, consciousness, technology, and then I found this event and I was shocked because it was like everything in between, like together, like a dream come true kind of.
Awesome, that's cool. And then I see someone else indicated other. I'm also
yeah,
interested to hear what it is.
I said, I mean, it wasn't a personal invitation. I'm chapter lead of the Samba chapter for Transformative Tech. So, I've been very active in the pods, the full member pods of the Transformative Technology community, which have been incredibly helpful in what has been a difficult year. And so when the Prague meetup came up, and to be honest, I had wanted to attend one of your previous meetups, but things were just so busy, and I think because December there were fewer things happening, and I was like, yeah, have a drink and just just relax. And so I was like, I should definitely come by and have a toast and look back. And I love what you guys have done. That pat on the back on the community from Prague. And it's been my first year running a community in Islamabad, and it's been very uphill. Not because people aren't working on transformative technology here, but they don't know what transformative technology is, even though they're working on it. So they just say that, oh, we're working on something for people with disabilities, or we're working on something for well-being, but they don't know about the community worldwide. And I would love to know more about your chapter, because I think you said you grew from 40 to around 162, which makes me think that you've only been in operation for 2 years. And 40 was the first year, and 162 is the second year. And I've gone in the last year around 32 members have joined in the first.
Awesome. I'm glad you found the time to have a beer with us tonight
Yes.
or this afternoon. And I think there is indeed lots that we can learn from each other community. So I like really that you're just joining us in a different region. And we started off, I think, a bit before 2020. That was before I officially joined, and that's why we had a bit of traction already. But we have been fully engaged only for the past year. And I think
Okay.
just because there is a lot of people interested, but you really need to actively approach them because, like you say, like not many people are aware that there is a whole network and community for them to support.
Actually, I think we had the first meetup in December 2019. This is where I first participated, and then we agreed with Thomas that we will take the community together and develop it. So So we started, I think, together in April. It was the first meetup together. In February, it was still personal. So it was Honza Veseli who ran the. It was another guy who ran the community and who was looking for the successors. So we took the hand.
And if I may ask, so how did you guys know each other from before, or how did you end up being like the co-hosts of the Prague chapter?
Actually, it was that I am a friend with Honza Veseli, who was previously in charge of the community, and he is running also about 4 other communities in Czech. So he was looking for a successor. So I discussed with him that, okay, this is the direction that is in line with what I want to do in my company. So I was interested. And Deloitte is engaged in also in the community globally. So Thomas was attracted to Brussels, to Prague.
I attended the first TransTech event in Palo Alto last year. And before that, I was in touch through some of my Deloitte colleagues, actually Ledena, who I'm in the house of Ledena right now. We are working together. And because of this connection, I actually changed jobs and moved to Prague because I'm from Belgium originally. And then they asked me to also co-lead the chapter with Hanka. So that's how we got to know each other.
So cool. So cool. Thank you so much.
All right. Maybe let's move to the next question. So very simple question. Actually, Hanka and I just answered it, but we also want to hear from you. Why did you join the TransTech community? And it's a word cloud, so you can just put in as many reasons as you'd like. All right, I like the answers that are coming in here. Multidisciplinarity, critical thinking, learning, discussing, but also in line with the business and people working on TransTech, sharing innovations with each other. And then here the last one, passionate about improving the future, unleashing human potential. And we can only do this collectively. I love it. That's my own personal reason why I joined as well. So I see lots of different reasons, but it's all united for the same cause. And the reason we ask this is because we want to feel why people are joining the community. And we also want to know what they're looking for in this community. So next year we can make it more relevant to the members and expand and just drive this vision forward to helping more people flourish in the future with our transformative technologies. Right, so let's move to the next one. Also an interesting question. How long have you been member of this community by now?
I have a question actually. Do you know when the whole community like actually began? The whole like the kind of global umbrella.
I believe it was in 2014 when Nicole Bradford and Jeffrey incubated the idea, and then with a few others in Palo Alto founded this community. But they already were very connected with other people in this business. But I think 2014 was the year when they formally established the community and the first event. And I think on the first event was about 50 people, 40, 50 people. And last year when I was there, I think it was maybe 300, 350 people present in the same location. So it's been going on for 6 years by now.
Okay.
So it's cool to see we have a few veterans here that are with us for more than 1 year, a few that have recently joined, and then one person that's somewhere in between. So we have a good representation here. It's nice to see. Maybe next question. So yeah, someone already indicated it in the word cloud, but we were interested if any one of us really creates or uses transformative technologies, and we're interested also in how are you doing this, how are you going about this. So I'll just give you a bit of time to formulate your answer. Okay, so I see we have someone in virtual reality, someone in data analytics, both a user and a creator, and then someone that says love it, not yet. So just interested in anyone that put up something in here to have a bit more context about what you're doing, how you're creating and using. So feel free to speak up, to unmute yourself and speak up.
Hi, everyone. Maybe I can clarify my answer a little bit. When I said both, I didn't actually say what the transformative technology that I'm focusing on is. It's predominantly AI, but AI is a very vague and not always a very useful term. So mainly machine learning and data processing and data analysis and what it can bring us in everyday lives. So both demystifying it and doing popularization of what AI is and isn't, but simultaneously working on hackathons and actually taking part in hackathons to go from the embryo ideation phase to something that can actually be a viable product and not just a fake startup. So that's what I'm doing.
Awesome. Thank you, Sarah. Anyone else that wants to share what they're up to, what they're doing?
Yes, I would like to share. I'm working on guided meditation in the Urdu language and also trying to include content right now, although I'm having difficulty getting it, but going to work on it, which is including content that speaks directly to the Muslim population in general. So Urdu has about 100 million speakers worldwide and is the lingua franca in Pakistan, and also understood by the vast majority of people who live in India and in many surrounding countries, including Nepal, Middle East, London, a lot of Urdu speakers. And of course, we know that there's a lot of Muslims worldwide. Personally, I've used a lot of transformative tech, but Gnome worked a lot for me. At least when I was subscribing to it, and then last few months I haven't been, so I gained like some weight back, but it was really great. And if anyone's looking to lose weight, although everyone looks so beautiful here, I can't say, but Gnome really is great for that. And I also have a white noise machine, which I use sometimes. So yeah.
Cool, super. Thank you for sharing. It's super interesting.
Wow.
All right, maybe there are so many answers. I'd love to have like discussions with all of you and dive more in depth, but for the sake of time, let's just move on to the next question, because we have a bit more content planned for you. Oh, that apparently was the last question. So then, Hanka, I think I can hand back over to you.
Okay. Back to the pool studio. Hello. So now is the time where we would like to have more inspiration from the young scientists. We invited you to. And we already had preparation for the meetup. We already discussed twice, and always it was like explosion of energy. And we couldn't stop ourselves in discussion. So I'm really curious about where we go to today. I have prepared 3 questions for all of you. So I hope that we will go the direction. If not, nothing happens, you know. Today it's really like a cozy meetup. So we can afford to discuss whatever we want and however we want. So I would like to introduce you to everyone. First of all, ladies first. So Sarah is a very inspirational and explosion of energy, I would say, overwhelming everywhere. And I really love your energy, Sarah. So please feel free to share with us your thoughts. Sarah is the archaeologist in AI, turning our beautiful country into an AI super hub. So, Sarah, I'm really looking for the discussion with you and what are your ideas.
Thank you very much.
Yes. So then we have another panelist, which is our Thomas. Thomas is the psychologist and organizational psychologist, and he is the future of learning, and we are at Deloitte. Superman. Then we've got another Superman, which is Christoph. Christoph Jarmar is a young neuroscientist. And he is, I call it twin brain with Vojta, the host of a famous podcast, Brain VR. And we also know each other with Christoph from our company, Jobs 2030, where we were going a bit of way together. So I'm really fascinated about your new ideas, Christoph, and about where you see the edge and, what are your thoughts about neuroscience. And last but not least, we are also international, even though, Thomas, sorry, I count you for a check, right?
That's fine.
Okay. So we've got an international guest as well, which is Isaac. Isaac is a young physicist, and he's PhD student in experimental particle physics at University of Zurich and CERN. Right, Isaac? Do I pronounce it right?
Yeah, perfect.
Okay, so here are our panelists, and we would like to dive into and explore with you your field of specialization. So, Sarah, please tell us what you are most passionate about in your field.
Thank you very much for such a generous introduction, and it's also to be here with everyone. Nice to see familiar faces like Christoph and Hanka and Thomas, but also meet new ones. So it's great to be part of this. I'm originally an archaeologist, which seems like the farthest that you can possibly get from artificial intelligence. However, it's actually much closer together than we feel. What I'm most passionate about is multidisciplinarity, and the older I get, and the longer I spend in technology and startups, which now is around 8 years in various contexts all over the world. As you can tell from my Monty Python accent, mainly the UK. What I find really shocking and sad and bad and not helpful is the huge distance that there is between the PR that is done to technology and especially artificial intelligence, and then the harsh reality of it, that people are basically now learning how to use Google Documents on one hand, and on the other hand, we're saying, oh yeah, AI can transform your lives, and we don't even know how to collect data. So what I'm doing in a lot of the time in tandem with a good friend of mine, Tomáš Mikolov, who's one of the best AI researchers in the world, and we're very lucky to have him back, that he returned back from the US back into the Czech Republic. What we do is a lot of popularization, demystification, not focusing on one product in particular. We are trying to be very academic, but also we have the kind of approach that unless your grandmother can understand it, then there's no point in doing it. So what I really try to do is blend really extreme combinations like archaeology and artificial intelligence to show that throughout humanity, innovations have shaped the way that humans are forming, that technology is merely an augmentation of the human brain and body, that artificial is our new evolutionary stage, much like before we had electricity or the steam engine, and we need to use it properly. But using it properly means that it actually trickles down to society and is not just used by a bunch of people who will pat themselves on the back and write great PR articles, but are fundamentally not doing anything with it. So that's my main role. So what I'm most passionate about is demystification and multidisciplinarity. So yeah, sorry, that was a bit of a ramble, but as you can see, I'm very passionate about it.
Yes, you can see that, definitely, Sarah. Thank you. Okay, Thomas, what about you?
Sarah, thank you. Every time I hear you speak, I get excited myself. You're such a great energizer. Thank you. And the technology I'm mostly diving into myself is virtual reality, as most of you know by now. So I went to my first VR conference about 3 years ago, and I was an eagle gliding through the streets of Paris. And after this initial experience, which was very, very embodying, I literally came out of it and I had to find my way back into the real reality. I also did some experiments with manufacturing a car and certain things to actually new stuff in virtual reality. And back then I was working for Deloitte in Belgium as a learning designer, not in fancy stuff like VR, but more traditional learning, virtual learning. But I thought there was so much potential in virtual reality, so I started reaching out to lots of people, collaborating internally at Deloitte, but also with academic institutions, with researchers, with other organizations, companies in Belgium. And after a while, I started noticing that in the Czech Republic, there is a lot of virtual reality startups, and there is a lot of work being done and a lot of innovation in Prague and in the wider Czech Republic. So after a bit of navigation and connection, I decided to actually move from Belgium to Czech Republic to help the adoption of virtual reality, to create an ecosystem where startups and investors, enterprises can support each other. And also from my role at Deloitte, I'm looking into transformational leadership and learning. And I think virtual reality can play a big role in that as a technology to support transformation. And obviously, there is a lot of areas where virtual reality can provide value and can be used for. But I'm mainly, my personal passion is how can we use virtual reality to augment people's perception of themselves, of others, of the reality around them. Also provide a safe space to learn, to experiment, and to experience new situations that transforms their mindsets and gives them new areas of new opportunities to learn. So I could keep rambling on forever, but maybe I'll stop here for now and give Christoph a bit of time to explain what he is passionate about as well.
Thank you, Thomas, for your work. I'm a biologist, and at this moment I study neuroscience, and I like the way like seeing technology as an update for biological systems, because it can like advance human self, human being, human interaction with his environment. And what I'm most passionate about, what I'm most interested in, is field of biohacking. It's where the science and some practical application meets. It's basically fancy word for optimizing your human health and other things, brain functioning, and etc. And the second field of interest is science. Science is about the brain. And what fascinates me is like the advanced technologies the science at this moment uses, like EEG, electromagnetic stimulation of the brain, like functional magnetic resonance. And these are like the most advanced and well-known technology at this time, by which we can observe, measure, and study the human brain. And what I'm fascinated by right now is how fast these advanced technologies are spreading to the wider community, and especially I had the experience in the community of biohackers, which in some way they use these technologies like even virtual reality and everything of this to optimize their health. And but what is my how to say it? I have still the problem with like communication between these two parties, like the general public that like to use some like advanced technologies and understanding, but they sometimes they like the like scientific thinking, and they miss the like good or bad of these technologies. And on the other side, there are scientists that are really great experts in their field, but they can't do well like popularization of the science, like interpretation to the public, and everything this. So I'm really most interested in merging these fields together. So like some kind of like multidisciplinary approach, as you both like mentioned here before. So yeah, that's it.
Okay, great. Thank you, Christoph. So we already could hear about AI, passions about AI technologies and upgrading the technologies, upgrading human body and brain. So I'm really curious what Isaac, the physicist, tells us about his passions.
Okay. Hi everyone. So thank you for the introduction, and also it's really nice to join this discussion with this very diverse set of different fields. Yeah, so I'm an experimental particle physicist, which means that we like what I do is like kind of looking for what we call new physics. So new physics is physics that we haven't discovered yet. So so you have heard probably of CERN, which is in Geneva, but it's like a really international collaboration that all chip in with like different scientists and also a lot of money to build these big detectors and big accelerator, like the Large Hadron Collider, which is in Geneva, deep under the ground. And what we do there is basically collide protons at very high energies. And so high energy here means just very, very fast. And when you have these high energy collisions, you can create new particles. And so what we're looking for in the data of these collisions is new particles that we haven't seen before and that can indicate this new physics. And so what I'm passionate about is really trying to kind of push the limit of our understanding, finding and the way to do this is to find new particles or the way they interact with what we already know. And so we already have some ideas of where to look, and this is why we have been able to convince people to give us money to build this big accelerator. But we don't know in what form or shape it will come, of course. So it's we're kind of at this point where we have this new machine since 2008. I think it got started. It can reach this record high energy. And we up to now we haven't found anything, so we had high expectations, but there might still be something we didn't expect that might show up, and so we might have direct or indirect evidence of new physics. And this is something that I'm working also myself on, mainly by analyzing data. And so this is also where kind of what's useful for the discussion here is that one of the way that we push this limit is by building these new technologies like accelerators and detectors, but also the way we do data analysis. So we use a lot of like machine learning and things like this. So a lot of these things like machine learning, like neural networks, these are things we have already been using since like the 90s, for example. So yeah, that's basically it from my side. Yeah.
Yes. Thank you. And you already touched the second questions I had prepared for you. Where is the edge in your field? So maybe you can start. Where do you think that is the edge and how to overcome it?
In particle physics, yeah. So my field is what we call high energy particle physics. You also have like low energy particle physics, but for us, the main limits are really technological. So we always have to build bigger detectors to reach higher energies, and so the limitations are mainly how big we can build them, how strong our magnets are, and how intense the proton beams are that we collide, right? But also the detectors, like how much radiation they can stand and how much data they can read out. So we want these very intense beams at very high energies to collect as much data as we can. So the more data, the more likely we will find something, obviously. Mm-hmm. And so this is why we need a detector that can read out very quickly in a very high radiation environment. Mm-hmm. So that's the technological limit. But then there's also kind of the limit of how much we can squeeze out of data, right? So there's a lot of, like I said, we don't know what to expect and what form or shape things will, like new physics will show up. So we need a lot of like methods and analysis techniques to look at the data, like machine learning. And so one of the recent things that have come up is, for example, so-called like unsupervised searches where you basically tell a machine to look for some new particle, but you don't give it any information what to look for, but it will look for some abnormality in the data. So this is one example. If you go to low energy physics, like you have smaller experiments that are sometimes just one room, there's a lot of like also detectors limitations, like where you have to reduce a lot of noise by cooling things down to like absolute temperature, absolute zero. But then you also bounce, like you can hit the limit of like quantum reality. So you kind of have a lot of quantum effects that you have to take into account. And then for like theoretical particle physics, so that's kind of the people that guide us to they tell us what to look for. For them, there is a big limitation. They kind of don't have a direction clear direction to go to. So this is why they need more data, and they need to tell us where to look for. So there's kind of this chicken and egg problem that we have with theorists. But they also have a lot of issues with computations. So their computations sometimes are very complex and very abstract. And so they are also very limited by computing power, for example.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
So, yeah.
Okay. Christoph, where do you see the edge in neuroscience?
Yeah, I hesitate right now if I should speak about like the field of my interest, which is the communication between the general party and science, or the science itself. Because in the science of the brain, I'm now like I'm participating in the experiments on exploring and research of consciousness, and it's really like a complex topic. And in this topic, I feel that the edge is really in the human factor, because like every data you get from neuroimaging methods like EEG, you need some interpretation of them, like you need someone to interpret the EEG brain waves recording, and it costs really a lot of time, a lot of money, and it's for me it's the edge where lies the edge. So I think that there is really just some fundamental need of application, some algorithm, some like technological solution to this problem. Like it's working on it, but the application on this field it goes really slow. So this is the edge in science, and the edge in like application of these like measuring methods in science to general public is for me like in the communication. Like really that I like some space, some safe space for communication, for some systematic grasp, systematic thinking about these topics, like research and application. But I think it's getting better right now. So it's
okay.
For me, right?
Yes, and we are really curious about the your findings in the consciousness. That's really amazing. Okay, Thomas, where do you see the edge?
Consciousness. That's what got me into VR. But I think if I look at VR, I see two edges. The first one is like in adoption. How do we get more people into VR? How do we make it more relevant to more people and more accessible? So I think one of the very concrete edges is just making the hardware more user-friendly. Because right now it's already come a very, very long way from 10,000s of euros and a whole computer lab to a portable headset without any wires. But it's not as user-friendly or low entry enough for a lot of people, for the mass of people, to really invest in a virtual reality headset and use it in the flow of their life. That especially becomes very relevant if you're looking at learning. I think that's a big success of the smartphone and the PC, because it requires very little effort to actually look on your smartphone and your PC for information and to connect with people. With virtual reality, it's a bit more difficult because it's a bulky device. You're completely cut off from the outer world. and you typically need a little bit of space as well to walk around or to be safe. And actually, when we're looking at the edge in virtual reality from this angle, I think I have a suspicion that in terms of hardware, we will go into the direction where the device will be much more compact, more easy to integrate with our lives. I saw an example last year already, where people developed lenses that you can just put on your eye, no one can see it. And they're able to already provide some augmented reality, so digital objects on top of the real world. So I think eventually, years from now, this will probably be where the device itself and the accessibility will be heading to. Just making it more accessible and more integrated with the natural habitat of a person. And most likely, AR and VR will also merge into the same device, and you will have the option to make it as immersive as you want it to be. And then in the other area, what really excites me is where we can actually use this technology for, what problems it helps us to solve. And I think a very interesting areas will happen when we start to combine technologies like biofeedback, like AI and virtual reality. I think we did a discussion on this actually on the global TransTech conference a few weeks ago. And I think if we combine these three technologies, there's really a lot of value that we could unlock, because virtual reality gives you this immersive environment in which you can visualize pretty much anything. Biofeedback can feedback your signals from your body, increasing your awareness and your consciousness. Virtual reality can visualize it in a way that makes it very impactful. And AI can help us get a grasp and use the data that all of this generates to feedback the inputs and the environment we want to generate in a way that makes sense. And this sounds very high level. I think maybe just one concrete example, because before I hand it over to Sarah, is in the treatment of well, let's keep it a little bit in a corporate setting with well-being. I think as a well-being device, it could be used in a very engaging way, where you could be immersed in a space where you reconnect with your body through biofeedback, with eye recognition software and devices, and using AI to feed all that data in a personalized way back to you. It can help you enter a different state of consciousness. Well, when we're talking about well-being, to get to a stage where you get into a kind of meditative stage, where you can refine your calm and focus. So I think that could be one example where these technologies could come together and scale the edges of this technology. And I'll shut up now and hand it over to Sarah.
Thank you so much. Yeah, in terms of where I see the edge, I'd like to answer this in three ways. I mean, we've got like an hour, right? So loads of time. So the first one is where I see the edge in terms of the spreading of and scaling of the technology or AI to the public. The second one is in its application, and then the third one is in research. So starting from research, I think that exploring artificial general intelligence is really important. And it actually connects what we're talking about here in terms of consciousness, because in order for AI to be able to do what Karel Čapek's RUR or like the Terminator movies, etc., claim that it can do, which it can't, and it's a question whether we'll ever get there unless we like somehow combine biological and robotic entities. So something about either combining biohacking and transhumanism, or maybe understanding more about things like swarm intelligence, or understanding, like we had Isaac from CERN, understanding the behavior of subatomic particles, and then understanding the universality of the universe around us and being able to emulate that in a algorithmic setting. We don't know the answer, because if we did, we'd already have it. But there's a lot of theories about how we can approach it, but the fact that we would have an artificial general intelligence that can actually think for itself, I think that would be an incredible breakthrough. It could be dangerous in certain settings, but like pen and paper is dangerous in certain settings if you write inflammatory propaganda. So like humans will be always able to abuse any type of technology, and I don't think that should stop us from sensibly and in a democratic way developing it. What I mean democratic, and I'd like to move to the public, where I see the edge, is spreading it to many people as humanly possible. I see a lot of talk about regulation of especially AI, and what the federal bodies are often trying to regulate either doesn't exist yet, or they're regulating completely the wrong thing. What we need to do here is democratize technology, and I don't mean that in a any kind of political sense. I mean that in getting it to as many people as humanly possible, because only by getting it to a lot of people, you will have that needed diversity to then give you the diversity of outcome and also diversity of opinion. And it's one of the reasons why I'm so grateful to be a part of this group, because I think disagreeing with each other healthily based on evidence and critical thinking is really important. And there's social bubbles forming on all sides of the spectrum, and which I think is really wrong. And I think that AI, because AI doesn't care, AI is completely unbiased, but it matters what input data you put in. If you put in data from a bubble, the outcome you're going to get is a bubble. So that's why I'm so passionate about the multidisciplinarity and getting it to people. Having like kids do hackathons, like really democratizing and popularizing the technology will give us, and it's that multidisciplinarity of we're back to research. Like there could be a genius research scientist in a village somewhere in rural Czech Republic, but he hasn't jumped through the A, B, C, like circus hoops in order to get to the specific academic setting to be able to do the research. And I think that truly democratizing it through, for example, giving access to internet to everyone in the world, high-speed internet, which I think should be a human right like water or a shelter, is going to be a step towards that. If I'm to discuss where I see the edge in terms of application of AI, for me personally is the digitalization of the state, which I think will lead to the way that states function. And I don't only mean having an easy way to do taxes, although that would be very nice, because I literally cannot handle any kind of bureaucracy that is around me. And maybe it's not as much like AI, like what would be more than sufficient is just collecting the data in the first place. Again, I hear a lot like, oh, are we going to have the China social scoring system? We're not. If people are in control of the technology, we won't, because there will be that feedback from the bottom up. And a beautiful example of that is the Belarusian protests that have been taking place. And the first kind of thing that people are really worried about is, is the government going to use AI to subdue its citizens and to be able to track them and to really quash the revolt? And actually exactly the opposite happened, that the people in the revolt used AI facial recognition technology to find secret policemen in the crowd, and then basically like take matters into their own hands. And they know that suddenly that now your neighbor works for the secret police. So actually the power completely flipped, where it was only through the fact that people knew what facial recognition even was that they were able to do this. I'm not advocating any form of anarchism, definitely not. But what I am saying and what I'm observing around me is that the old model deriving from the Industrial Revolution of the traditional nation state and the possibilities that are given to us by transformative tech, not just AI, the models are not meeting, and people are having bigger demands. They want their lives to be easier, and that's fundamentally transforming society and economy, and the state is not keeping up. The traditional structures are not keeping up. So that's where I see the biggest application, whether the result of that is things like predictive healthcare. So like literally we have the human genome map. There's nothing stopping us from being able to use machine learning to have personalized healthcare and diets, etc. for everyone, therefore minimizing people actually like having to die. Or whether it's things like being able to like cure cancer, again, like just literally through developing they're actually thinking about developing a vaccine for cancer based on the fact that the COVID vaccine was minimal regulation because there was no time. So what they were able to do is genetic engineering, where they basically clip a specific bit of the RNA. I'm not a biologist, I'm not sure how exactly that works, but it's a method that was traditionally frowned upon. But now they actually figured out that it works and that they can use it for cancer as well. So these kind of things is where I see AI really making our lives easier in an applied setting. But my overwhelming feeling is that in the next 20 to 30 years, the world that we live in will fundamentally change thanks to technology. And it takes as little as giving people the internet and analyzing the data that we already have. So that's where I see the edge.
Oh, perfect. Thank you, Sarah. Thank you. You completed the answers, absolutely. And thank you also for mentioning democracy, because now we are going into the question, to dive into the question that people are really excited to go beyond the edge, to explore what's there and how to evolve and how to help themselves to become better, to upgrade themselves, So there are different ways how to get there and what to do. Usually it is it can be the companies that are driving the exploration, because it can help them improve and it can help them upgrade the business. And here we come to the question: how to help the companies, and especially the leaders and the owners of the companies to decide not only for the profit, but also for doing the right things, the right decisions. As you mentioned, the Belarus case, how people used the technologies to discover the secret police. So there are several risks of the AI and the really high tech. So how to do the proper things, how to enhance the positive way of usage, not the dark one, And the discussion is up to you, so we can discuss, not just one by one. What do you think of that? How to support the bright side of the technologies?
I think actually Sarah already gave Sarah already gave a lot of those answers. I think having democratizing it and thus also enabling a very diverse workforce to really work on those technologies will automatically lead into a design of the technology that benefits more people, not just one small bubble of people that are really developing this technology. And I think it also goes hand in hand with multidisciplinarity, because for me, it doesn't make sense to all stay within our little confines and develop some VR headsets in our basements without consulting with people from other domains and specialities. Because I think the true power is in combining these technologies. And why I'm really passionate about transformative technology community is because of the intention. Because I think eventually everything is tied to the intention. If we ask ourselves the questions, how do we want to consciously develop these technologies for the good of all humankind? If it's with an intention to do good with people and with the right considerations, I think in most cases you will end up with a product or a service that will serve people in a way that helps them in any kind of way to lead a better, happier, healthier life. And with formulating this intention, because the intentions don't come out of thin air, I think it needs to come from people just actively reflecting on this, coming together, discussing with healthy disagreements, and just keep on evolving the intentions which we see our technology, in which we want to evolve our technologies. And I think forums like these are the perfect forums to do it, because it allows us to break free from our organizational silos, from our domain-specific silos, And eventually, these efforts could also result in recommendations to governments who have the power to really anchor this in institutions and regulations. So I think lots of the answer is to consciously develop technology to help humankind are around the intention and collaboration.
Super. Krzysztof, I can see you writing, so what do you think of that?
I like your last words, like consciously develop technologies. So I have a lot of thoughts and don't know how to put them in English, but I'll try. So for me, it's I'm trying to get some like biological perspective on technologies, because the technological evolution is like way faster than a biological one, and we have like a lot of disadvantages like in a world, in an environment full of technologies. So I will like redesign your last answer and tell like that one of the solutions for me is like consciously develop our bodies to be in sync with technological revolution and evolution, because like the technologies around us, they developed a lot of like disadvantages, and they distract and damage our bodies. For example, like artificial light, it's like breaking our circadian rhythm, and it's correlating with a lot of like diseases like in the world. So we need to put our bodies in sync with these technologies, and in this particular case, we can also use technologies to solve this problem, because we can, for example, install some blue blocking apps like to our computers, to our screens, and we make the harm smaller, and even we can use it to our advantage in the future. But we need to push ourselves from like the on a scale, it would be like our health is on a -1 to 0, to some like neutral state against the technology. So it's my last thought about the topic.
So you think it's about us as individuals to decide consciously what we want to do?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Great. Isaac, what's your point of view about that?
Yeah, so it was really interesting, really stimulating what the previous speakers have said. So for high energy physics, I have to be honest that I'm actually kind of surprised why we still get like so much money to build these detectors. And so kind of if you look, it's a lot of money, right? So it's really hard to convince people to dig a big hole in the ground and put some stuff there that you don't see, right? So and it sounds also very fundamental to have a Higgs boson that doesn't have a direct application. But so if you kind of go back and look at like the history, I know this also I tried to connect it to kind of what Sarah was talking about. Is if you kind of look at the US, for example, after the World War II, when physics kind of got to this point where we needed these bigger machines, there was the Cold War, and so there was a lot of money for many military purposes, and also to kind of keep the scientists trained. And so this is why the Americans had a lot of money to build these big machines. But then in CERN, so in the Europe, you had before CERN existed, you had a lot of different countries that were like that were completely that needed to be built up again, and kind of out of necessity to pull together all the resources and money, they made CERN, and it was established in I think 1953. It's kind of funny if you compare it to the European Union, which was like the precursor to the European Union, which was the European Economic Community, was founded 4 years later with only 6 countries. But CERN was founded in 1953 with 12 different countries. So in that sense, particle physics, at least for Europe, was really bringing like at least the scientific community together before politics could do so. And so this is one of the reasons why I think CERN and particle physics is really important, to kind of have to foster these types of collaborations in in terms of game theory, like in a non-zero sum game, whereas at the global stage you often have different like in geopolitics you have a lot of people fighting and thinking that everything is zero sum, and so it's not just also for just keeping the peace, if you will, but it's also bringing together people from very diverse backgrounds. And so what I was talking about before, when we are analyzing this data and we want to look for something in unexpected places, we do need a lot of new innovative thinking and a lot of new people that think in different ways and have original ways of attacking this problem. And so for this reason, I think, at least for CERN, it's really important to have like a broad corporation and a lot of different diverse set of people. So that's kind of one side. So bringing people together for looking for new physics. But the other side also, the reason to why we still get this money, I think, is besides that we kind of have historically this big lobbying power to lobby governments. There's also kind of a return on investment. So if you want to put it in economic terms, which I don't think you should, so there was this one research that kind of looked at like for every Swiss franc or every euro you put into CERN, you get back, according to this analysis, 1.8 Swiss francs. So you kind of get like more back than you put in, and this is very interesting to see, of course. And so they looked at different things like technological spillover. So a lot of technologies that are being developed for CERN that otherwise wouldn't have been. We also work together with a lot of private companies. And then also a lot of the scientists that get trained at CERN, they don't stay at CERN, but they go work in a very broad, very different fields like software or finance or other industries. And so there's a lot. This is really valuable for those other companies. And then they also take into account things that are more difficult to measure, like for the public good, just for how interested people are, for cultural benefits, things like this. And there are many things that actually couldn't measure or couldn't take into account. So maybe this is a very conservative number, 1.8 return on investment. So maybe if you take into account, for example, a lot of the technologies, like for example, there are a lot of applications in the medical world. So because we built all these accelerators and particle detectors, this is very useful for medical imaging, but also medical radiation therapy. And so there's also, you can save a lot of lives down the line, downstream of all the technologies that are being developed. And this is something that people can measure, but it's hard to measure how CERN goes all the way to saving people's life, of course. But then again, to kind of undermine myself, I don't think that we should look at this number, because I think, kind of like art, I think we should subsidize this type of research just for the sake of the physics. But it's anyway nice to know that it has a positive impact. But I'm not sure if this is. I don't want to think about physics as a commodity that you can buy, sell, and invest in. But and this kind of goes back to make full circle to what Sarah was saying.
Okay.
And that's it. Thanks.
Great. Thank you for the insights. And it's really important to know that the science actually now when I'm going to say that the science is much more modern than the political institutions, I would say. But that should be that way, I suppose. That there are more science is more cooperative than the politics are actually. That's a big finding.
It should be like a model for international collaboration in different places.
Yes. Okay. Thank you. So, do any one of you have a question?
By the way, I'm just sorry I dropped out for a second. My internet is terrible. There's some kind of outage. Can you hear me?
Yes. I can hear you.
Oh, okay, epic. Maybe just like a really, really quick point from me. When I was here struggling with my internet, this is exactly the kind of basic stuff that I think is needs to be sorted out. I was at a conference with Aspen Central Europe recently, and they were talking about the internet infrastructure in the Czech Republic, which is actually comparably pretty good with the rest of the world. And the results that came out of it was shocking, that sometimes it takes up to 24 months for optical cables to be laid upon request. You also have new houses being built that don't have optical cables in them. And it's all fun and hilarious until you have something like COVID, when everyone is online all day, every day. And then we can have thoughts as much as we like, but if we can't actually connect to something like the internet and we can't implement them and we can't communicate, it's a massive problem, because the internet is not for sharing memes, although that is awesome and I personally love it, but it's become a new communication tool. It's the equivalent of the writing press being invented. You suddenly have people being literate in a completely new and different way. You have like digital literacy. So people, can read and write, but unless you know how to start a Facebook profile, you're basically the equivalent of illiterate in today's society. So I think that we have two levels crystallizing here. One of them is genuinely pushing the boundaries of nature and research, that I think all of us are doing in a certain way. But the second one is actually making sure that it gets transformed to the rest of the people, and to make sure that this kind of literacy spreads. And an interesting archaeological metaphor, obviously, because I love archaeology, was that when writing was first invented, Egyptologists and Mesopotamian specialists argue about this massively, but it's roughly 3,500 BC that it was invented. Until roughly maybe 1850, and not even then, when you had the Industrial Revolution and you actually had compulsory going to school, and that is also in the Western world. There's obviously civilizations that don't use writing because it's just not their tradition, so their brains are wired in a different way too. But like general literacy, it took us almost 5,500 years. So writing was invented, great, but it took 5,500 years until people could actually write letters to each other and expect the other person to be literate. We can't afford that same time frame with something like artificial intelligence or machine learning. We need to start doing it now, otherwise we're missing out on the next evolutionary stage. So that's something I'm really passionate about, and I'm really glad that this community is talking about topics that concern it, and I'm honored to be able to take part.
Great. So a very nice summary, I would say, of our discussion. Catherine, do you have any questions for the speakers, or Victor?
Hi, everyone. I didn't say hello earlier because I was eating breakfast here.
Oh, Catherine.
A little late. And I think we had Rick for a minute from North Carolina. Maybe he couldn't get connected. He's in Costa Rica, actually. He's a co-lead for the chapter. Anyway, I'm curious because I'm a huge fan of neuroscience, and especially all the breakthroughs that have been going on. And it's been a great attraction for me in trans tech, especially coming from both a spiritual and meditative, as well as a tech background, working with AI and things like that. So I'm a big fan of Thomas Huberman and also Thomas Hubel in, I think he's in Austria. There's a whole bunch of people, but why do neuroscientists always talk about studying the brain when I feel like our understanding of the whole nervous system is that our nervous system is an impression of all of our experiences. So I sort of think of it as the whole body and what's around it. Do neuroscientists think of it that way, or is it really just what's inside the brain?
Yeah, I think we have to think about the brain like it's part of the body, and the dualism that was here a few centuries ago, and the discussion just continues. It's from neuroscience perspective, it's not on point here, because our body and our brain is like a hardware, and our mind is like a software on a hardware. It's modern neuroscience perspective, and in studying consciousness, when you are thinking about the brain, when you are studying the brain, you always have to go to your environment, to perceptions, to interacting with the world. But the exact research in consciousness is really limited by methodologies, because we can observe just some neural correlates of consciousness. And for example, methodologies in this field are very limited. We use one really nice experiment, which is named like binaural rivalry, when you present to both eyes different stimuli. For example, to one eye you present house, and to the next eye you present image of a face, which are like silent stimuli for our brain. And which is interesting is that our brain can't perceive both stimuli together at once. It's like they need to fight for your consciousness, for your perceptions. So they are changing in your consciousness. And this is one like beautiful experiment we can study consciousness. So like what process underlies the like grasping, choosing mechanism of a brain of like perceived stimuli, because at the same time in your brain they are going like many like millions of processing at once, and it's really hard to grasp this complex processing and activity in your brain by really limited technologies like already mentioned fMRI or EEG. But to your question, like we need to look to the brain and to the consciousness as a part of a complex thing. But like it's some kind of problem of the expertise, because when you're studying neurocorrelates, you need to be expert on neurocorrelates and on neuroanatomy. So at some level, you just misses out the whole picture, and you need to you just misses the whole picture. It's really hard to explore all of the parts of the field.
Maybe we need more technology to read it or something.
yeah, like the technology that interprets better the data. It will be awesome, because it will just enhance the fast with which the field is now like going and progressing.
Really helpful. Thanks, Christoph.
Yeah.
You're welcome.
And we've got another question from Victor, whose internet is lagging, so he had to shut down the video. But Thomas, the question to you: what are the other projects in learning VR space you find interesting? If you can mention.
Yes, of course. Awesome. I'm actually actively looking for really cool use cases where people have used virtual reality. And research that recently came out was from Mel Slater. He is a professor at the University of Barcelona, and he's like the grandfather of virtual reality research. He has been doing research for over 30 years, and he is one of the most cited researchers in the field. And recently he published a study on virtual reality and empathy and implicit bias. So I found this one very interesting, not because it made me aware that virtual reality can enhance empathy and decrease implicit bias, because I already was aware of that fact. It's even Mel Slater who came up with some research that suggested this. But in this research, he found out that it depends on how you set up the experience, whether people's implicit bias towards people of a different racial background will increase or decrease. So it made me aware that if you design a VR experience with the intention of doing some good, which is decreasing implicit bias, and you're not sure how to go about it, so you just put people in any kind of VR experience you think might help them, you could actually do more harm than good, because it also has the potential to increase implicit bias in very, very subtle ways. So the conditions where when people are impersonated, embodied in a body of someone that has a different gender or racial background or ethnicity. And they have a positive experience when people pass them and they're not friendly. They tend to decrease their level of implicit bias. But if people are aggressive to them, even mildly aggressive, and cooking them off or just looking a little bit angry at them, it increases the level of implicit bias. So this was really an eye-opener for me, that it really is very important how you design your experience, and to be aware that you really need to measure what you're doing. If you want to do some interventions with this technology, you really need to measure whether you're achieving your aspired impact, or maybe if you're not achieving the opposite. So this was one interesting use case. Another one in a completely different realm, where I'm really passionate and interested about, is with VR Engineers. It's one of the startups here in Czech Republic. They developed something for surgeons to train in virtual reality. And people have been doing this for some time already, because it's a safe environment. They don't need actual patients and they can make mistakes without any long-lasting injuries. But VR Engineers has this crazy high quality headset in 8K definition, a very wide field of view, and they have very cool instruments that sync with the virtual reality headset. And you can actually recreate a real surgeon's knife, where the surgeons can practice in virtual reality using the equipment that feels the same, and then in VR looks the same as the equipment they use in real life. And I could probably go on for some time with interesting use cases, but maybe we'll just share a few on our social media channels of the community to inspire you a bit further.
Okay. Thank you. And it was also a very nice pass to what we also want to share with you at the end of our meetup, because the time is limited. So Thomas, I give you the word to tell the rest of the information we want to share.
Super. Yeah. So initially we had planned a second Mentimeter session in which we wanted to get some more feedback from US community members in how we want to approach 2021 for becoming even more conscious and intention focused community to build this tech in a more conscious way. But since we have a lot of data scientists on the call, and I see we're 8 people right now, it wouldn't be a smart choice to take our decisions based on data of just 8 people, of which 2 co-chapters and 3 other panelists. So I think we implicitly agreed to just have this interesting conversation going on for some time. And then we can listen to the community insights in another way. But one of the things we wanted to already share is that we experienced that our LinkedIn community isn't very vibrant, or not to say not vibrant at all. And I don't think it's because of a lack of engagement or interest from the community members. It's much more because LinkedIn groups don't feed into the general stream of LinkedIn, making it very difficult to just engage as just the way the platform has been set up. So what we decided is to keep the LinkedIn channel, but move our main activities on social media and keeping people engaged on social media in the community by moving to Facebook instead. So we are creating a Facebook group. We will invite every one of you to join together with all the other 346 community members. And we will be posting content regularly, both on LinkedIn and Facebook. But I think this is the biggest change in the way that we want to approach our digital strategy to keep more momentum going, attract new people, and build a more lively community on the social media platforms by moving from LinkedIn to Facebook. So that's a change you can expect in the coming weeks. It will be a slow transition. And I think that's from an organizational point of view, those are the main key messages. And then on a personal note, I just want to raise my glass one more time with all of you, do another virtual cheer, and thank all of you for your engagement, passion, inspiration, and joining us here for the final Transtech Football 2020.
Yes.
Na zdrowie.
Na zdraví.
Na zdraví. So thank you all of you for coming, because it's the closest meetup we had during our year. So it looks like that December is really tough time for such a meetup. So we appreciate, and we will share the ideas of the speakers through the social media. So everything is being recorded, and we will help your words to be spread. So thank you a lot, all of the speakers. Thank you. And hope to meet with you also in our social media groups, either LinkedIn or preferably now in Facebook. So hope to have more discussions there, open discussions, because this topic is so much important and so much, it's a really huge topic what we can do in the area together. So thanks a lot for that.
Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you, everyone. Bye.
It's a pleasure.
Bye.
Happy New Year.
Happy
Thank you.
Christmas.
Bye.
Merry Christmas.
Bye-bye.
Merry Christmas. Bye-bye.